Good afternoon and welcome to From Where We Are, stories of news and culture through the lens of USC and Southern California. I'm Taylor Mills, coming to you live from Studio B in USC's Annenberg Media Center.
And I'm Sudarshann Ramabadran. It's Monday, October 4th. On today's show, USC's most diverse freshman class, a closer look into Title IX, and a robo for building furniture. All that and more from where we are.
So, Sudarshann, you're a grad student, correct?
Yes, studying public diplomacy.
So, when were you a freshman in college?
Oh, I started undergrad in the year 2007. I finished undergrad in the year 2010.
That's insane. Like, you realize that I was in first grade then. And for me, my freshman year of college seems so long ago, even though I'm just a junior.
But Taylor, no matter when you choose to study, learning never stops.
Such wise words. Well, we've taken a trip down memory lane here, but it's time to look ahead, and that's to 2025. It's a year that seems way in the future, but it's a benchmark year that's already breaking barriers for USC. The class of 2025, also known as the current freshman cohort, is the most diverse group of students this campus has ever seen. Here's Kennedy Zach with more.
The class of 2025 is very diverse, both racially and ethnically.
You know, this is something that we have long been working towards.
Tim Brunold is USC's Dean of Admissions. He says the latest news is good, but it's just a step.
You know, I think it's important to point out that I don't think we can ever say, oh, okay, we're diverse enough, or you know, we've succeeded and we have to stop trying.
USC freshman biochemistry student Taran Gupta shares his experiences on campus.
And I think USC is a place where you can be yourself, and I've found that through the many clubs that I've joined, and just the people I've met. I've met people from all different walks of life.
The applicant pool was huge. Over 70,000 students from around the world applied for fall admission, and this was during a global pandemic, when the admission office had to conduct most of its recruitment virtually. They also changed some of their requirements. Most notably, last year's applicants did not have to submit a standardized test score. Again, USC's Dean of Admission, Tim Brunold.
This is going to be a very interesting year this year to see how the students that we selected do in their first year of college, because the standardized tests have really been designed to predict first year performance in college.
Because SAT and ACT scores were optional, less than half of applicants ended up including one. USC freshman Anthony Guzman did not submit his test scores, and he's grateful for this new policy.
And so I think it was pretty beneficial for me as a low-income student because I just couldn't afford all those fancy tutoring services.
USC won't require a test score for the next 2 years. This could incentivize an even more diverse applicant pool. And there's another policy change that may be swaying the surge. It's called the Affordability Initiative. This initiative offers full financial aid for students coming from households with less than $80,000 in income. Since this began about a year ago, USC now admits its highest ever percentage of first-generation college students. 10 years ago, that number was about 14%. Now, about 23% of admitted students are the first in their family to go to college. According to Dean Brunold, financial status is not a factor when considering a student's admission. Instead, the university is trying more than ever to consider the applicants with what he calls a 360-degree view. With that in mind, freshman Anthony Guzman has this advice for anyone who's applying to USC. Be as authentic as possible on your application.
Is that a lot of people think of college admissions as a game, where you have to break the code and do these specific things, and you'll get a higher chance to get in. I would say stay clear away from that mentality. There's not really that much that you can do other than be yourself.
While this increased diversity of the class of 2025 is a step in the right direction for the Trojan community, there is still work to be done. For Annenberg Media, I'm Kennedy Zach.
Facebook has started to come back online for some users after being inaccessible for about 6 hours. You heard that right, 6 hours. But a spokesman says it'll take a while for all of Facebook's apps, including Instagram and WhatsApp, to be back to normal. Today, billions of users across the world open their phones to scroll. They were met with a startling message. In English, that would be could not refresh feed. Facebook, Instagram, and WhatsApp shut down their services due to an unknown outage. How will this affect USC students, businesses, and users from around the globe relying on these outlets for communication? Shreya Ranganath has more on this story.
Facebook, which owns the massively popular social media giants Instagram, Facebook, and WhatsApp, brought services offline this morning at 9, leaving millions frantically searching for an outlet of connection. Facebook took to Twitter first, releasing the following statement: "We're working to get things back to normal as quickly as possible and apologize for inconvenience." Twitter used the opportunity at hand to poke some fun, tweeting, "Hello to literally everyone." We spoke with Nicolette Peggy, a sophomore design student, about her experience logging onto Instagram and noticing the shutdown. This is her favorite app due to its visual-centric display and fast access to information.
It's easy when you meet new people on USC campus to get their Instagram, so that's how I have most people that I've met so far since I've only been on campus what's it been, a month? So if you're kind of disconnected from that, you're kind of disconnected from most of the people you know, except for maybe your roommates. So that's kind of weird that it's shut down, so you don't really get to see what's going on campus, I guess.
From a business perspective, users are also greatly impacted by a lack of platform or medium to display products, make sales, and draw the attention of massive audiences. USC Annenberg professor and social media expert Karen North says that a global outage of this magnitude has a massive impact.
If you think about it, it's a communication tool that is really central to a lot of businesses. So for businesses or for groups or for support groups, for a variety of people who interact in a meaningful and important and even financially necessary way, or even in terms of safety and health, when people rely on platforms like Facebook and Instagram or WhatsApp and they go down, it's actually a much harder blow or much more significant impact than those of us who use these as social networks.
Only when our social media apps go down do we realize how deeply dependent on them we are. Again, Karen North.
When these things go down, it's not merely a social network. It's not merely that you can't share your vacation photos. It is really a huge interference with the daily lives and the daily operations of people both personally and professionally.
At airtime of the show, Facebook-owned services are still offline, and the different platforms are left to plead for patience from their users while they scramble to solve the problem. Until then, users from around the world will continue to log on, refresh, and wait. For Annenberg Media, I'm Shreya Ranganath.
The outage was the second major piece of bad news for Facebook in recent days. A whistleblower exposed that Facebook has covered up research on the negative impact Instagram can have on teen mental health. One study revealed that about 1/3 of teenage girls who felt bad about their bodies said the app made them feel even worse. With more on how USC students and social media experts feel about Instagram's impact on mental health, here's Stacey Ramsey.
Instagram is a virtual world where people can be anyone they want and encompass a large or small amount of likes and followers based on the visual content they post. Stacey Leska, USC adjunct professor and former social media editor for the LA Times, is not surprised by Facebook's latest findings.
This generation of teens, Gen Z and younger, are the first generation that have lived their entire life with social media. So they've never known a reality outside of that.
While social media has its cons, there are also reasons why people keep logging in.
It's a great place to be able to connect with people and share ideas and knowledge and meet people and grow.
For Leska, this is how social media should be used, and she hopes users can find their way back to this.
I would really hate to see an entire generation of young people put their worth in who's following you on social media and some idea of perfection.
The definition of celebrity has been changed by social media.
It used to be that the idea of celebrity was again, these huge mega stars, of Hollywood. But now it could be the person sitting next to you in math class can have 100,000 followers on TikTok or Instagram.
USC freshman Victor Falcone says this issue is bigger than being a public figure.
We're all human. Sometimes we get jealous of what other people are doing. And if literally everything that we're seeing is like good things happening in other people's lives, and like we're at a very rough mental point, it makes us think that we're like somehow we're less capable, we have less achievements, we're somehow less of a person.
Tally Callan, a freshman at USC, recently recovered from an eating disorder. Callan says she doesn't like her body as much now, but her mental health is better.
I developed a really terrible eating disorder, anorexia, in high school because of social media and the beauty pressure and standards that I felt like I was held to.
For Callan, filtering her social media feed by eliminating triggering content has created her a more positive social media experience. It's clear that Instagram can have negative effects, but users always have a choice to use social media in a way that is not harmful. For Annenberg Media, I'm Stacey Ramsey.
Unvaccinated celebrities have been a hot topic in the news this year. In professional basketball, multiple big stars have refused to get the shot. The NBA announced their response last week. Here's Aidan Henry with the story.
NBA players who miss games because they're unvaccinated will not be paid for those absences, according to a new announcement from the league. Over 90% of NBA players are vaccinated, but multiple high-profile stars are holding out, including Kyrie Irving of the Brooklyn Nets and Bradley Beal of the Washington Wizards. The NBA does not mandate vaccinations for its players, but local health codes may prevent unvaccinated players from participating in certain games. For example, Irving would be blocked from playing home games under New York's current laws, and he would lose over $300,000 per game missed. These players argue that vaccinations are a personal choice, but others say that public figures have a responsibility to set an example and keep the people around them safe. Requiring vaccinations has proven controversial, even among USC students. Ryland Chase is a civil engineering major at USC. He isn't sure about vaccine mandates in the NBA.
I am very pro-vaccination. I just think it's risky to mandate vaccines for anyone.
Diego Ramos is a journalism major. He thinks that public figures should be responsible and get vaccinated, but he sees why some players might be hesitant.
I do understand some of the arguments of some of the players that, for personal reasons, and this happens, for any kind of institution, even here, you have medical, religious exemptions or whatever, and I think those should be considered too.
But other students have different views. Theater major Ben Larson would support a vaccine mandate.
Because, the players are traveling a lot. They're going all over the country all the time. They're going to be exposed to a lot of people as well. And so just for those people as well as themselves, it's the smarter thing to do. Although I don't necessarily know that extreme of a measure needs to be taken because it seems they've been encouraged due to other regulations.
Regulations such as withholding pay. The civil engineering major Ryland Chase agrees with this new policy.
Yeah, I think that's totally fair. If you're putting other people at risk by not getting vaccinated and you're not allowed to come to work, you shouldn't get paid for work.
This new NBA policy seems to already be having an effect. Andrew Wiggins of the Golden State Warriors was a high-profile vaccine holdout, but just this week he got the shot after the pay cut announcement came out. It's unclear how many others will follow. But for Angelinos, there's good news. The Lakers and the Clippers have already announced that their rosters are fully vaccinated. For Annenberg Media, I'm Aidan Henry.
I'm Taylor Mills. We're glad you're with us for From Where We Are.
And I'm Sudarshann Ramabadran. It is 14 minutes past the hour. Coming up, a closer look into Title IX. Stay with us.
Following the Title IX investigation regarding the USC song girls, there has been conversation on campus among students and faculty on how USC addresses diversity, equity, and inclusion, or DEI. Caitlin Calfo has more.
Title IX is a federal civil rights law that prohibits discrimination in schools or education programs that receive federal funding. USC is actively making an effort to create spaces for DEI to be brought to the forefront. Vice President and Title IX Coordinator Catherine Spear and Vice President and Chief Inclusion and Diversity Officer Christopher Manning emphasized that fostering a community with diverse viewpoints is a high priority. In their statement to Annenberg Media, they said, quote, "There is nothing more important than making sure that anyone who spends time in our community feels secure and is treated with respect." Along with other initiatives, the Office of Inclusion and Diversity and the Office for Equity, Equal Opportunity, and Title IX are working closely together to develop DEI trainers who will have a curriculum on inclusive teaching in their learning modules. These DEI trainers will be able to work with academic units across the university to expand the professional development in diversity, equity, and inclusion. As the Vice President of USC Student Government, Lucy Warren gives insight on the students' perspectives and future goals on campus. Warren works closely with the Title IX office and says that she notices a disconnect between the student body and the Title IX administrators.
Student body really has a general lack of awareness of how to utilize their resources. Honestly, I didn't know what their resources were until I had an initial meeting with Title IX and learned that they can provide things way beyond just actually going through their, hearing process. So that can be services like getting you out of class and providing you accommodations, connecting you with OSAS, finding you a new apartment, making sure you have a cop or a security officer to walk you to and from home, whatever you need.
Warren hopes to bridge this gap by educating the student body about utilizing their resources and understanding how to report Title IX cases.
There's several ways to report to Title IX, but students get lost, and then because of that, there's not actually utilizing those reporting methods. And so having a centralized misconduct reporting form and adding that to classroom syllabi has also been something that we've been working on.
Former USC songgirl Josie Bolin encourages students to utilize Title IX. Bolin's statement to the LA Times about the songgirls case says, "Our one and only goal in going to the school and telling our stories was to ensure that no student would experience what we did. The findings of this investigation are providing a huge step forward in accomplishing that. Thinking back to my year on the team is difficult, but it is healing to know that the program is moving forward in a positive direction. The USC Songgirls program is an iconic part of university tradition, and we truly want the program to have longevity in USC's history. Although there are current efforts put in place, there is still work to be done to ensure that all on-campus communities feel safe and heard." For Annenberg Media, I'm Caitlin Calfo.
IATSE, the largest entertainment union in the country, voted over the weekend to authorize a strike for thousands of crew members. Months of negotiations with major producers ended unsuccessfully. This could shut down film and TV production across the country. To rally the troops, entertainment industry workers across Hollywood are sharing stories online of what they call horrendous work conditions. Alexandra Applegate reports.
Entertainment workers feel like they're not asking for much. Meal breaks, time to rest between work days and on weekends, livable wages, and enough money to retire with. Marissa Shipley, art director and vice president of the local IATSE chapter, said crew members are fed up.
They're really basic things. It feels a little ridiculous that we're talking about meal breaks in 2021, which seems like a basic human need. And I think the fact that they're such basic asks is part of the reason members are really standing strong. We've kind of hit a breaking point and need change.
Authorizing a strike does not mean a strike will happen immediately, but it does give the IATSE president the power to call a strike if it comes to that. The Alliance of Motion Picture and Television Producers, or AMPTP, says the film industry is still recovering from the pandemic, but Shipley believes the industry trying to catch up and put out content has made working conditions worse.
There is this pressure and pinch to just produce as much as they can as quickly as possible. And the thing that really gets pinched is the human crew members behind that work being asked to work weekends and work long days and work those long weeks week after week after week.
The pandemic also revealed to many employees inside and outside entertainment that they are unwilling to keep working in bad conditions. They're sharing their stories on social media.
Social media and the age that we're in has allowed crew the space to talk honestly and openly about the conditions, kind of the first time in a different way. Once the door was open, the stories kind of flood out.
Jamie Tunkel, who's a script coordinator, USC alumna, and union member, said she is expected to always be on call.
The reality is that as a script coordinator, an average day is that you are available all 24 hours of that day. Even when I'm off the clock or even when I'm on weekends, if I'm at dinner, if I'm at the movies, if I'm traveling, if I'm anywhere, my phone is glued to my hand and my laptop is on my person. We are trying to make this better so that other people don't have to go through what we've been through.
Longtime prop master Charlie Jason often works 14-hour days, not including his commute time.
Even a short day for us is a 12-hour day.
Jason said a common problem in the industry is falling asleep at the wheel when driving home from those long days.
A few years ago, I was leaving set and I got pulled over for drunk driving. I hadn't been drinking. I'd been working for 15 hours. That happens to people all the time.
IATSE hopes the strike authorization can be used to help negotiations with AMPTP before it comes to a strike, but they're prepared to strike if they must.
It's just all so exhausting. It really does feel, I think, for many of us that like this has got to change or like we're out.
For Annenberg Media, I'm Alexandra Applegate.
Did you know that the male sperm density has declined by more than half over the last 50 years? This caused fertility to plummet in many countries. Nico Kazem reports.
Doctors and scientists around the world are disturbed about the ongoing sperm count crisis.
It's not just that, fine, you and I are probably half as fertile as our parents were or their parents were at our age, right? That, first of all, is kind of a scary thing. But then you look at testosterone levels, which have also gone down by about 50% over the last 40 years.
That's Dr. Khaled Kataly, the founder and CEO of Legacy, a new company working to destigmatize fertility and mitigate the negative effects of its decline.
And so clearly there is something that is around us, that is the chemicals. And this is what Dr. Swan writes a lot about, right? This idea that there are forever chemicals, these phthalates that stay in the body that can lead from everything to, higher rates of cancer all the way to, in theory, shrinking penis sizes.
Until recently, the conversation around fertility has largely focused on females trying to conceive. But this study has shown that in reality, male fertility is equally likely to be the cause of infertility in a heterosexual couple. Phthalates are a class of chemicals that destroy the endocrine system and have been found everywhere from plastic containers to the tubes used to process milk from dairy cows. Besides decreasing sperm counts in men, they have a profound effect on our general health.
And we know that exposure to these endocrine disruptors like phthalates is very damaging to us. And we know that sperm is actually a great biomarker of your overall health. So when we're saying that sperm counts are declining, really it means that our health is being affected in a more meaningful way.
However, the trend shows no signs of slowing. Although unlikely, a continuation of the trend predicts that the median sperm count in men will reach 0 by 2045. Many experts describe this as one of the most pressing public health issues of our time, yet no one seems to be talking about it.
The question you're asking is the one that I think about all the time. Right now, the majority of men who talk about it are, in couples, they've been trying to conceive, it's not working. And interestingly, you're more likely to talk about cancer in your family than you are to talk about infertility in your family. Because there's a lot of stigma, there's a lot of shame.
For most people in their early to mid-20s, having children is the last thing on their mind. However, for most men and women at that age, that is the healthiest their sperm and eggs will ever be. Scientists want people to start thinking proactively instead of reactively about having children in the future.
So in an ideal world, you should be thinking about testing it now, freezing it now, just basically, lock it in. Lock it in, right? And ideally, you have kids in undergrad who are doing this when they're 18, 19, 20. That's your peak fertility. Just locking it at a young age.
It is hard to imagine a world where college students prioritize their reproductive health over other issues. But this is exactly what Dr. Kataly and others are challenging. If reproductive health monitoring was normalized among young people, many of the consequences related to declining fertility rates could be mitigated. Cryostorage is a procedure that allows an individual to safely store healthy sperm and egg cells for when they're ready to start a family.
Now imagine a world where every guy is frozen his sperm, right? Like you've just done it when you're 20. It's a thing you do. It's even on your Tinder profile. It's on your OkCupid. It's like, froze my sperm. Yes, I'm like that kind of forward-looking, thoughtful guy.
As egg freezing becomes easier and more common, we could live in a world where one could freeze their sperm at 25 and use them with quote-unquote the perfect person at age 40. For Annenberg Media, I'm Nico Kazam.
That music means it's time for another Trojan tale. If you've ever put together IKEA furniture, you know the pain. What if you never had to go at it alone again? On today's Trojan Tales, Cassie Esparza reports on how a USC project could take away the dread of building IKEA furniture.
Let's get IKEAing!
It's become a rite of passage when you move into a new place. You drive to IKEA's bright blue building, walk through the never-ending maze of a showroom, and pile your cart up with more items than you can fit in your car. Then comes the part everyone loves most, figuring out those abstract instructions. Thankfully, YouTube is there to help you out.
Okay, this is a drawer. These thin things fit into some of the slots, kinda.
Maybe not, but researchers at USC have built and programmed a robot that might become your new dream helper.
I am Ramabadran. I work with Professor Stefanos Nikolaidis in the Icarus lab at USC.
Icarus is the interactive and collaborative autonomous robotics lab.
So what we do over here is essentially try to build robotic systems which can, in some shape or form, help humans in everyday tasks or other tasks, like helping users build IKEA furniture.
When you're putting together an IKEA bed frame or dresser, you're confronted with a pile of nails, screws, and pegs. Nemlikar's work is focused on how robots can make the building process easier.
What motivated us is that robots can perform some things, even if the tasks are complicated. Like they can perform the secondary actions like, oh, I need this part right now, I need this tool right now.
The robotic system is more of a helper than a builder. It runs in an algorithm that Nemlikar and his team created by watching people build an IKEA bookcase without instructions.
A human comes in, takes one part, connects that part, and then the robot decides, okay, for that action, what is the part that I need to give it? And this is essentially the role that the robot does, is see the human do an action, decide what the human's preference is, and deliver a part that the human would need next.
The project was inspired by a robot that famously learned how to build an IKEA chair all by itself. Researchers created it in Singapore back in 2018. But the Icarus team decided to focus on human-robot collaboration.
If we want robots to really be useful for us, they should be able to work in unstructured environments for them, which is environments which are designed largely for humans. And I think that is the next challenge in terms of getting robots from factories to the houses. And that is one additional way that robots can benefit us in our lives.
For Nemlikar and his team at the Icarus Lab, this project is just the beginning.
After working on robots helping humans build IKEA assembly, one of the main things that we wanted to show going forward is that first, our algorithm can work for other assemblies as well. And we just wanted to make the challenge even more challenging.
Icarus is now trying to figure out how people and robots can work together to build a model airplane. For Annenberg Media, I'm Cassie Esparza.
And that's all we have time for on today's From Where We Are. Celine, Mendiola and Diaz produced today's show. We had help from Ethan Huang, James Lee, Seeran Ajemenian, Lara Prakash, Sam Reno, Ngai Yeung, and Tess Patton.
Diaz runs our soundboard, and Derek Renfroe composed our theme music.
We are streaming live on KXSC. Catch them at kxsc.org/listen, and we are on YouTube at Annenberg Radio News. Special thanks to Joyce, Kim for running our live stream. Subscribe to From Where We Are on Apple Podcasts and Spotify, and look for us on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram at Annenberg Media. If you're looking for more news, be sure to download Annie, Annenberg's news app. I am Sudarshann Ramabadran.
And I'm Taylor Mills. From all of us at Annenberg Radio, wherever you are, we hope you'll join us again for From Where We Are.